So I'm here with Thando Sibanda, who is a writer, performance poet and arts consultant based in Harare. Right, so and of course living in Zimbabwe then you would have a bit of both. You have obviously there's the turbulence and then there's just the general humanity that we see everywhere. So does that make your work, does that in essence end up making your work more political, or is it more of a sort of social exploration of these ideas?
I prefer more of a social exploration of the ideas. I try to avoid the protest political medium. I prefer to touch on the basic everyday issues of our social life, because you find in Zimbabwe we've got a lot of disjointed, the social fabric in Zimbabwe is very disjointed. Let me explain this by saying that in Zimbabwe almost everyone knows someone, a friend, be it a family member or a colleague, who is outside the country. And that colleague or friend is a husband whose wife is back in Zimbabwe. And this person is probably 8 hours away. And that colleague is probably a wife who's in Australia, maybe 12, 16 hours away. So through that, now you find that in Zimbabwe, being an African country, family is very important. And particularly extended families also is very important. But because of the economic crisis, the economic social turbulence that happened in the past few years, people were tended to leave and migrate to other countries looking for greener pastures, trying to take care of their family. But in the process, kids are being raised, growing up without one or both of their parents. And those children have a certain disadvantage over the other children who grow up with both parents. But then the kids with both parents also they have to face the harsh reality of probably poverty. Because in an environment that is this economic turbulence, probably they cannot really give their children that comfortable lifestyle that these other parents who migrated can. So there's always that reality you have to balance and face. Can I leave my family and give them a good lifestyle, or can I be there with them 100% and give them that emotional support that they'll grow to become adults with a strong emotional support breakdown, but then also go through untoward poverty, highs and lows in life. So there's always that balance.
And how do you explore that then? You're a writer, and tell me a little bit about how, and a performance poet. So when you look at these themes, can you tell me a little bit about your work?
When I let me maybe describe my writing process. When I'm at that point where I'm creating a poem or a piece of work, the thing that always comes to mind first is connecting with the audience. I suppose coming from a background that is more performance related. In Zimbabwe, culturally we celebrate everything through music, dance, rhythm, be it the birth of a child, death, marriage, everything. There's always music, rhythm, and chanting. So with that background, now whenever I create a product, first and foremost, what comes to my mind is I picture myself on a stage in front of an audience and how I will relate to that particular audience. That's my creation process. Then through that process, now I would ask, what sort of audience is this? What affects their life? Which sort of homes are they coming from? What sort of families do they have? What sort of values as a people do they have? Are they all Christian? Are they all African? Do they all believe in African traditional religion? Or are they maybe foreigners coming into the country to experience the different cultural background that we have as Zimbabwe? So when I picture that now, that will also affect the content of my work. Though mostly I tried always to be a mirror of the current scenario in Zimbabwe, the disjointed social fabric, the ups and downs of trying to make ends meet, to pay rent at the end of the day, to put the food on the table for your family to eat. The process of doing that, I always try to get into that inner turbulence that happens to an individual as he faces the fact that probably he might not make rent in time towards the end of this particular month, or he has made rent and he has put food on the table, but there are other issues he needs to take care of. There's no power. Both power in Zimbabwe is a difficulty. It's not a constant. It's not in constant supply. So we have to find alternatives. So that issue of always think of alternatives. Probably the tap water is not in constant supply, and the one has to think of alternatives. So that whole process of going through those paces it affects one's way of looking at life. So I always like to write and give a picture of the individual, what he goes through as an individual, and then maybe later how it affects the whole society.
And what sort of impact have you had? So this is your process, which is very much, in some ways, interactive with the audience. You've got the audience in mind when you're creating your work.
Yeah.
So what kind of impact does that have you had, and is it what you wanted in some ways?
I'd like to believe I've had some impact, though not to the fullest extent possible. Zimbabwe is a very youthful country, with the current statistics according to the 2012 census preliminary results say that 65% of Zimbabweans are 35 years and below. So this is a huge youthful demographic, which is a demographic asset for Zimbabwe. And so you realize there are a lot of people who are actually molding themselves as individuals to grow up as being adults in a society that is a disjointed social fabric. So because of that huge constituency, as an individual, I would like to believe I've impacted not that much, but having worked in the industry, with programming, with development, with my colleagues for the past 5, 6, 7 years, we are starting to see pockets of positive impacts on people we've worked with in the past 3, 4 years. So I would like to believe it's a journey. It's a long walk to freedom, as Mandela has put it. So it's a lifetime process where you continue to impact on certain individuals and hope that those individuals will cascade that inspiration to a bigger audience and grow the audience. So for now, I would say that we are trying to impact. We have impacted possibly a shorter number of individuals whom we hope will become opinion leaders and then cascade that to a bigger audience.
And does your work get you into sort of trouble of any sort, or do you steer clear of that? Or has it got you into any sort of trouble?
I wouldn't say that it has gotten me into a sort of trouble, considering that I always try to avoid political protest work. So being more social, well, obviously, from the background where I come from, they know you are there. They know this is the particular kind of work you do. So I would say that they are aware I'm there, and they are aware of the sort of work that I do. But I haven't really gotten to that extent where I'm really in a sense of having that inner fear that probably something will happen to me emotionally, physically, or otherwise. I haven't gotten to that particular extent. I hope I won't get there. So I always try to be more social, dealing with the real everyday social issues.
Yeah. And so with a kind of youthful demographic, which is actually something I think that's all over the continent, actually, we see it in Kenya and in Senegal and various other places where you've got these sort of very bulging kind of young populations. Are they? Is there an interest in poetry? Is there an interest in art, or is it difficult to enthuse people about the sort of thing you do, or do you find that there's a ready audience for your work?
With the youth in Zimbabwe, there's a ready audience. The youth take to arts like the duck takes to water. Being a youthful audience, obviously, they try to find ways to express themselves. Remember, these are people who, at one time, let me give a funny statistic, that at one time, last 3, 4, 5 years, Zimbabwe is said to have 90% unemployment. So things are slowly improving and changing, but you find that most of these youth are still informally employed. They don't have that formal employment, and some lack opportunities for training for basic life skill sets and even college. So these are the people that always find other avenues to explore and express themselves, and the arts is the easiest way for them to do that. So there's a huge and ready audience, and I would like to believe most artists and writers performance artists, musicians, poets. They're fairly well recognized by the youth. Socially, though economically, it's still a difficult industry to make a living out of. I suppose that's the same thing everywhere under the sun. But they are fairly recognized, and the older adult generation are the one, I think, who are still yet to be convinced that this could be an avenue that my son, my daughter could delve into and really try to find their own footing in the art sector. But the youthful audience, they really appreciate.
So what of your work then, what to date are you most proud of?
I'm proud of I think the networks that I've created and the work that I've done with my colleagues. I've got a few colleagues who work using different genres. I'll give a particular example. Maybe my colleague who uses hip hop as a tool for social change, particularly themed around HIV and AIDS, because that's one scourge that is very prevalent in Zimbabwe. So he uses the medium of hip hop dance in high schools, and we worked together in starting this particular project in 2007. Right now, it has grown to become something that is officially recognized even by the powers that be, that this is a powerful tool to work with youth. I've also had colleagues like my other colleague who started a youth festival, and who through that youth festival he has recorded visual clips that he has put into a film entitled Toendepi, meaning where are we headed as a people, as a young people, and it has won an award at the Silicon Valley Documentary Film Festival, another award in Brazil. So I'm happy to be in that creation process of such products. And also I'll mention maybe my other colleague who's a choreographer and a dancer who basically decided to go back to his neighborhood where he grew up in Mbare, a high density suburb, which in Zimbabwe, if you ask anybody about Mbare, it's more popular because of social vices, crime, prostitution. That's the sort of environment he grew up in, and he decided to go back there, establish a community center, start training youths on contemporary dance and on other arts genres like theater and music, hoping to at least give a sense of light in the dark tunnel that these youths are coming out of. So I'm happy to be connected with those colleagues and creating those pockets of positivity and hopefully inspire a larger audience.
Okay, and have you got, just very briefly, any future plans that you're excited about, or where are things going?
Well, having worked in all these different processes, I'm just hoping that things go bigger. We impact more youth, particularly in rural areas. Most of the work that we've done is with urban-based youth, and we need, and what we do is much more needed in the rural sectors of Zimbabwe, and because there are youth out there who live there, and we need to impact more on those youth. So my hope for the future, and with resources, hoping to impact more, touch the hearts of those youth in rural areas, and hope to give them that inspiration